Good afternoon. I'm Ron Rubio with the VSN Sports, and today we're coming at you from the beautiful campus of Brawley Union High School. Alongside me today is the Athletic Director, Dean of the Imperial Valley Athletic Directors, Billy Brewer. And today we're going to touch base real quick, a couple of notes on what it's going to take guideline-wise, policy-wise, to get fall sports going for student athletes throughout high school, throughout the whole Imperial Valley, specifically right now for Brawley, California. And our man here today is Billy Brewer. Billy's fresh off athletic director meetings, and he has some COVID guidelines that have been handed down to the athletic directors. Billy, correct me if I'm not, were those handed down by Southern Section or it's just San Diego Section? What governing board?
That is San Diego CIF, but it does come from the state body, CIF state.
State body, CIF. And as I said, there were guidelines on how to start fall sports. And as it is right now, Billy, what is it going to take to start sports in all the high schools, Southern Section, San Diego Section?
Yeah, the whole state of California will be on the same guidelines. So what's happening, Ronnie, is the fact, and I appreciate VSN. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak on this today. Appreciate what you guys do. We have some guidelines that, first of all, before sports or anything in athletics can take place, you have to get school started.
Sure.
Once school starts, then at that point we can have our guidelines and our preparation ready to go into the things that we're getting ready to speak about. They have put down about 12 different items that we have to work on, Ronnie, and we'll go through them real quickly right here. A lot of it is keeping athletes safe.
Sure.
And how do you do that in a safe manner? Well, number one, as you can see, is travel. How do you transport athletes? It's a pretty tough time when you have to sit be 6 foot apart. So they're talking about shuttling athletes. Multiple buses. Let's take a football team. Multiple buses. Pretty tough if you're up in San Diego or you're outside of the Imperial County. How do you do that in a financial wise manner? Pretty tough situation. We use Suburbans here at Brawley High School. Pretty tough. So now you're back to buses, which means more money. But you could have multiple buses just carrying one football team to a game, 6 feet apart. So that's a big one, obviously. If you do take Suburbans, you're having multiple drivers. Well, to get multiple drivers, you got to get them cleared through the ICOE. You've been down that road.
Sure.
And that's $160 a pop. So you get into a whole lot of different things. That's number one. Number two, how do you do practices? What do practices look like? Well, now we're talking about, Coach Self was in here for 2 hours yesterday. We're talking about, maybe some extra volunteer coaches because now we're getting into smaller groups. Maybe starting later with the heat because practices very easily could go longer now.
Right.
Not something somebody wants to hear. I mean, all of those things are tough, but you're going at a slower pace when you're doing smaller groups instead of having everybody together. Obviously, at some point, you're still playing football and you're going to be head-to-head. So you get into all kinds of different issues right there. Number three, and again, there's about 11 or 12 guidelines. Number three, what do games and meets look like? So they're talking all sports here, not just football. To have a game, I mean, we have not had this put upon us yet, Ronnie, but we very easily could have those thermometers that don't touch the body at a gate.
Right.
And that's if we have spectators. There is a better than not chance that we won't have spectators at a game. If we are allowed to have spectators at a game, we're back to the social distancing. Do we only have family of those athletes come to a game? You can see where you're at and where this is all going. Number four. What safety measures do you put in place? And some of these are going to overlap, so we'll go through it real quick. Water, for instance, big one here in the valley. It's a big one anywhere, but especially here. We have bought the new, and I just thank the good Lord for the Brawley School District and the school board and my administration and Tony Leone who's put these in. We have bought the new drinking fountains where it's just a bottle. You stick it in, no mouth is touching, no hands are touching. You bring your own bottle, you stick it in, it fills up the water, it's cold water. You can imagine at a football game, we have water girls. No more of that.
No more.
They can't be touching, there's no hand-to-hand. Even with gloves, there's just liability that goes into that. So those are the kind of things that you're looking at. Let's go on to the next one. Or five. If games and stuff had to be altered, and again, this is going through some of the scenarios we're going to get into.
Overlap, correct.
We could be talking only varsity only. We could be talking minimizing games. It could be a shortened season, and we'll get into that. I know that's one of your questions here in just a minute. So, and it says spectators or not. So all these things kind of overlap, but all are important. Start times. What do you do with start times? If it's true that the heat does affect the virus, do we play earlier? Now, You know, if here in the Imperial Valley we're a little unique compared to San Diego County, it's going to be 100 degrees at night anyway, so we're probably still fine. But those are the kind of things that everybody is looking at this point, and time. And then you can imagine having a game. How do you do on the sideline? When you go into the locker room at halftime, is that a wise thing to do anymore, or stay out on the field? A lot of times we stay out on the field, as you know. So you're getting involved in multiple issues on each one of these.
Billy, before you continue now, on these guidelines that we're discussing here, are these pinpointed at all fall sports or all sports in general, or do these have anything just to do with contact sports? Because some people are going to say, hey, I have a daughter playing tennis or a son playing tennis. Are they going to go through these? So were these generated for contact sports, or was it just, as you said, right now it's just kind of like a generic guidelines?
I think the emphasis is mainly on football right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But on saying that, with the COVID virus, it does, it drops down. So let's go fall. I mean, volleyball, what we're touching, water, it still contains the same things.
For sure.
Volleyball's inside, so they're not dealing with the heat on the outside. So there's different issues that come involved in that. But they're not going to be wearing a face shield like a football player might be wearing compared to a volleyball player or a cross-country meet. So I would say the majority of them are interactive with all sports, rather. Okay. But the emphasis is on football right now, just because of the contact side.
All right.
Let's go to the next one, Ronnie. How will facilities be affected? From your pools to parks. We use off campus. We use a city field for baseball. We use a city park for our pool. You can imagine water, how that comes into play in a swim meet. Fluids and just other things that can get involved in all of that. So it definitely affects your facility as far as, and again, just talking on the football side right here, I mean, we want to do a better job of having water-cooled fans on the sideline, and those things just come with heat and the dehydration that our athletes are always dealing with. But in saying that, I still imagine keeping that air flowing and not just settling in one area.
Sure.
Is still going to be a positive situation. And then it goes to the next one. How would you handle the water, cleaning supplies? What would you use? And this talks, and then it gets into the locker room. Right. So there's multiple things. I think the locker room probably will be off limits. I think the locker room causes all kinds of issues. Sure not does. To mention you're enclosed in an area, and there's proven studies that talk about the virus, being outside and being inside. So I think in our case, and I'm only speaking for Brawley High School, we're going to stay out of a locker room issue on the male and female side.
Get dressed at home, come ready for practice, leave practice dressed, and take a shower at home.
And Ronnie, you're hitting on all of it. Again, on the water, and it talks about just facilities, of course, the restrooms. I mean, we might be limiting 2 at a time, and then you're sanitizing, 2 at a time and sanitizing, and you're spraying. Again, as we know sports, that day is over. As we have, our normal is not a normal anymore.
The new norm may have a lot, everything's going to be bigger support staffs at events, so we get it.
Absolutely. And then you get into what you just said, Ronnie, with the way budgets are going to be, and people out of work and all this stuff, and the money and the deficits. Yeah, just what you said, adding more people to that is only going to cause a greater, effect on some of these issues. So, yeah, And then, it talks about a couple other things, press box. You've dealt with the press box. Well, again, that's going to be, as you know the word, your wife in the medical industry, essential people only. Mm-hmm. And we say that meaning your announcers, the people that you absolutely have to have up there taking care of a ball game. And then there could be partitions in between. Those are things that I think that are minimal compared to some of these other things that we're talking about athletically. And, just a kid, if our football kids have to wear a face mask, you can do that in San Diego County when it's 60 degrees at night. Pretty tough here in the Imperial Valley to do that. They're already dealing with the heat, and now you add on top of this. So that's kind of where we're at on the guidelines. You have to have a game plan for all of those written up in order before the state, and obviously your local governing body, which is San Diego section, will ever let you get on that field or court. Well,
it sounds like a lot of work, Billy, and everybody appreciates the work that the athletic directors and the governing board has done. So if you are a student athlete right now, you're seeing this, you're a parent or a student athlete, what are the scenarios right now that you know of starting football? And we're talking football right now, we'll talk football, and I'm pretty sure football probably coincides with volleyball and all that. But as we're talking right now, what everybody wants to know, just like they are right now on the national level. When does the NBA start? When's the NFL start? Well, when's high school sports going to start? But what does it look like? Of course, we have to get in the classroom first. Let's hear it from you.
Well, let's go back to the scenarios we were talking about earlier before the interview, Ronnie. And providing our start date is July 30th, which is, and I'm talking athletics here. The side of that is, as I was telling you earlier, it'll be the first time, at least in my time here at Brawley High School, I'm in my 26th year, there is no dead period. The dead period's over. You had that 2-week allowance for parents to go on vacation and do their thing, which we all enjoyed, just that time break for sanity and for kids,
Yeah, I like
coaches,
that.
everybody, parents. That's over. So that dead period's already taken place the last couple months, as you know.
Yeah, we're getting dead.
And so without the dead period, so here when we are allowed to get on the field, and I'm talking about in the summer here, again, you would have to have summer school going. Your school has to have school in order for you to ever step
Sure.
out on the field, regardless of what Brawley does or anybody else does. That's why everybody has to have a plan. And to do that, I could see that happening middle to the end of July. I mean, about the middle of July, I would say. I could see that possibly taking place, maybe getting 2 weeks in, maybe getting 3 weeks in, and then you go straight into football. It'd be your 7-on-7, and but then you're right into football. So there's some tough things that are getting ready to happen. And if you want to go through the scenarios, can do that real fast. If you want to talk on that, I have to use my phone on that one. So let me tell you, let's just again concentrate on football on this one. If you started on July 30th, you're pretty much at your regular schedule, right? Your regular schedule as far as dead week not dead week, but hell week, and starting on from that point. The next start date is August 24th, so they're kind of spreading it out 3 weeks to a month on each one. At that point, you eliminate state playoffs.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the only thing that would be different in that second scenario. In the third scenario, now you're getting into an issue, that would be starting somewhere around September 21st, Ronnie, is your scrimmage weeks are over, no scrimmage, no state. And then it keeps going down, and the next one on top of that is, and if it gets to this point, God forbid, October 19th being a start date. Now again, there's just different scenarios for each month. You're out of scrimmages, you're out of the state playoffs, and now we're starting to go into a part where you're shortening the actual schedule. It could go anywhere from 7 to 10 games. So it just depends how late we are starting. Right. You could eliminate CIF at that point. You might only have a league season. So you're starting to really get into things at that point where you're taking away from these kids.
Well, yeah, it's a domino effect, right, Billy? So if the fall sports start late, rationale is winter. That means basketball.
Everything is pushed back.
Everything is pushed back. I was reading that somewhere there was a chance that football could start in January, or was that an old scenario? And then there was a start of fall sports in January, and then it would culminate with baseball mid-June. Yeah, they would have enough time cutting out tournaments in basketball, cutting out tournaments in baseball, and just getting to the meat of your league and maybe some, non-league.
Yeah, there was some talk of that. That was more of a coach's situation.
Oh, okay.
I don't think CIF wanted to get into that because for one sport, that was a lot of change that's already
Sure
taken
is.
place. You have kids that have just gotten messed up out of the spring season, which again, our heart goes out
Yeah,
to
heart
these
goes
kids,
out,
broken
sure.
for these kids. I still feel the pain of that. I can't imagine. My kid was in the winter and is a wrestler and had just finished.
Got through it.
Had just finished
Just
CIF
finished,
and
right.
that hit, and you can imagine some of these kids were on borderlines of scholarships or not scholarships. Some of these kids without that scholarship couldn't go to college. There's all these issues
Right.
that just come out of that. So I think what the big game here, and again, it's all going to be based on when the governor lets us do all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, I think whatever happens to the fall sports, starting with football, it'll all get pushed back. So if football starts 3 weeks later, your winter season is going to be starting 3 weeks later, and it'll be a domino effect in the spring, same thing. So it'll just keep going down the line. And I could see that, and just being honest here, I think I could see a shortened season for each one of those periods, the fall, winter, and the spring. And I hope we don't get to that. You start to see some good news, and then things change, and you know that better than me, Ronnie, with your family and the medical side of it. But that could happen. It's just the reality of where we are, and in this nation.
Well, Billy, this is what's going on, and these are the guidelines we have to live with right now. And as we said, as with the virus, things can change tomorrow.
Yes.
Some of these 12, 13 steps that we have to do may change.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Something, we may get good news, we may get bad news where it's going to alter our direction. But what we hear, if there's anything else you'd like to add, Billy, because we pretty much touched all the bases. We found out when When can football start? How is it going to look? How are things going to look? And I'm pretty sure one thing I do as a football coach, have they discussed how to conduct practices? I mean, is that something that each school is going to do on their own, or are we going to follow certain guidelines? Earlier, you had told me we may have volunteers to help out with groups and separation of kids.
Those talks again, those are coming out of my athletic director meetings, Ronnie, and they're going to filter down to the coaches. Coaches are going to come back with things. No, we want to do that as a section, not just a school. People are going to have some great ideas that some of us never thought of, and vice versa. So whatever helps. Nobody wants to go to a longer practice. I mean, kids need to get home, school, homework. I mean, family time, meals, sleep, church. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that, and we don't want to get to that point. On the other hand, if you're having smaller groups, you can see that taking place because instead of everybody just piling together, offense versus defense. I don't have all the answers. Coach Self was with me yesterday. I mean, we're just shaking our head because some of that you just don't see how you can do it without doing the normal, the original, what we've done forever. But we got to start thinking outside the box, and that's why we want to throw it out there now. If people have some ideas, get a hold of your school athletic directors.
Exactly.
I mean, start thinking about stuff that we're talking about because it affects your kids. Yes, they're our kids, but it's your kids. And so, no, I appreciate you letting me go through. This is a game plan. Doesn't mean exactly like you said, Ronnie, is going to happen. It'll be based on when the governor says things are getting better in the state of California because it's a statewide thing. It's not just a local thing. And so that's where we are today. Could change tomorrow, as you said.
It can't change tomorrow. And Billy, we appreciate your time. If there's anything else that you want to add, if not, I think we're done here.
I appreciate it.
And I appreciate very much. We can't do the thing. I love this guy right here. Billy Brewer is doing so much for our kids. And I know his voice is going to be heard not only in the Valley, but throughout the Southern section and San Diego section. Like he says, if you have any ideas, if you're in the medical profession, if there's things you've heard, models you've seen, we all can use it. We're all in this together, and hopefully we get right on track with football because we need it. Society needs sports. We need it. Our kids need it, and it builds character. And we're all here for the better of sports, high school sports. None better than Billy Brewer. Billy, like I said, man, we appreciate your time, and let's get to work.
Thank you, Ronnie. I appreciate all you do, and I appreciate VSN. Thank you guys so much. And again, we're going to get there. We got to do it for these kids. We got to find a way to get it done. And bottom line, we'll figure it out. But if you have ideas, please let them pour in.
You got it. All right, so that's it. Billy, from the office of Billy Brewer in the beautiful campus of Brawley Union High School.
Thank you.
I'm Ron Rubio, VSN. We'll see you later. Take care. Be safe.